Hello viewers, in my last lecture I had discussed with you structural aspects of monosaccharides, in which I had discussed the D and the L configuration. And I am sure it must be very clear to you by now that D and L configuration, which was given by Fischer, is a relative configuration. It was assumed by Fischer that the D enantiomer of glyceraldehyde, which has OH group on the right hand side, was assigned D configuration, whereas the enantiomer of glyceraldehyde having the OH group on the left hand side was assigned L configuration. Why did he do so? Because the L configuration, the L enantiomer, that is the enantiomer which was levorotatory, which was rotating the plane of plane polarized light in right hand direction, in left hand direction, was levorotatory. So in this enantiomer, the OH was on the right hand side, so he assigned it configuration L. And similarly, a molecule which was rotating the path of plane polarized light in right hand direction was given D configuration, and therefore this molecule was taken as an arbitrary standard. As you can see on your screens now, the D enantiomer, which is indicated by small with plus here, has OH on the right hand side, and since it has OH on the right hand side on the asymmetric carbon on the horizontal line, this molecule was assigned configuration capital D. And similarly, a compound which was levorotatory and had OH on the left hand side at the chiral carbon on the horizontal line was assigned configuration L. And all other monosaccharides were assigned configuration in reference to this glyceraldehyde, which was taken as an arbitrary standard. And then next thing he said was that all sugars, when we are assigning configuration to monosaccharides, then we have to consider that what is the position of the OH at the highest numbered asymmetric center. See, you can see on your screens here the structure of L-galactose, and what we find that at first chiral carbon the OH is on the right hand side, on the left hand side, at the second and third it is on the right hand side, and then at the fourth chiral carbon it is on the left hand side. So with reference to which carbon are we assigning configuration to this molecule? So what you have to remember is that the D and the L configuration is assigned on the basis of position of OH on the highest numbered asymmetric carbon, or we can say on the basis of the carbon which is furthest away. So this is the carbon where we will see that what is the orientation of OH here, and since OH here is on the left hand side of the horizontal line, we will assign this galactose molecule L configuration. Similarly, if you look into the structure of two isomers of glucose whose relationship to each other is that of enantiomers, that is, they are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. So what we find that D-glucose, which is dextrorotatory also, has a OH on the right hand side at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon. So if we talk of the asymmetric carbon, we know the second carbon, third, fourth and the fifth carbon is the asymmetric carbon. So this structure will be assigned configuration capital D, whereas the second structure, in which the OH is on the left hand side on the highest numbered asymmetric center, is assigned configuration L. So what you have to remember is that DL configuration refers to the position of the OH at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon with reference to glyceraldehyde taken as an arbitrary standard. And the next thing you have to remember that almost all sugars which are found in nature are having D configuration. That is, in them OH is on the right hand side at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon, whereas when we synthesize a sugar in the laboratory, it can have a D configuration or it can have a L configuration. The second thing again on which I would like to stress here is that capital D refers to configuration and small d refers to optical activity. That is, how will this molecule rotate the path of plane polarized light, and small d indicates that this molecule is dextrorotatory, that is, it will rotate the path of plane polarized light in right hand direction. So now we know enantiomers are non-superimposable mirror images of each other, and if one enantiomer is dextrorotatory, the other one will be levorotatory. Now let us familiarize ourselves with the terms diastereomers, epimers and anomers. So what are diastereomers? We have to see this, and then we have to look into certain examples as to what are diastereomers and what is the difference between diastereomers, epimers and anomers. So before proceeding further, I would like to go back to my last slide, and I would like you to concentrate on these slides. What we find that at each chiral carbon here, we have the configuration at each chiral carbon is different. That is, in this case, if the OH is on the right hand side, in L form the OH is on the left hand side. Then at the second carbon also this OH is on the left hand side, whereas at this it is in the right hand side. Here both the OH at the fourth and the fifth carbon are on the right hand side, whereas in this isomer or enantiomer they are on the left hand side. So the configuration is different at each chiral carbon when we are talking of enantiomers. Therefore we say that enantiomers are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. But when we talk of diastereomers, what do we mean by that? So first of all, let us look into, like, if we have a carbohydrate which has multiple stereocenters, as you saw in the last example, glucose was having 4 stereocenters. So it can have many stereoisomers, it can have enantiomers, which I have just explained to you, then it can have diastereomers, epimers and anomers. As I've already said that 2 carbohydrates are said to be enantiomers if they are non-superimposable mirror images of one another, which I have illustrated by taking the example of glucose. So here again you can see that these 2 molecules of glucose are non-superimposable mirror images of each other because configuration at each chiral carbon is different. So they are enantiomers. Now the question arises, now this glucose molecule has molecular formula C6H12O6. Since it is having molecular formula C6H12O6, and as I've shown in this slide, this has 4 chiral carbons in it, glucose molecule. So if it has 4 chiral carbons, that means the number of stereoisomers for this molecule would be 2 to the power of n, where n is the number of chiral carbons. That means a molecule compound having molecular formula C6H12O6 having 4 chiral carbons in it can have 16 stereoisomers. Now, are all these stereoisomers enantiomers? That is, all of these molecules have non-superimposable mirror image relationship between themselves, or is there something different? So what we find that all the stereoisomers are not enantiomers. Only the D form and the L form of glucose are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. Hence, they are enantiomers. Similarly, if we talk of L-trose, which is another monosaccharide, monosaccharide, aldose, and it is also aldohexose. So this will also have 6 carbons in an aldehyde group. So if we talk of D-L-trose and L-L-trose, the relationship there will be that they are enantiomers of each other. But what is the relationship between D-glucose and D-L-trose? Are they enantiomers? Then the answer is no. They are diastereomers. So what do we mean by diastereomers? We say those stereoisomers which have 2 or more chiral carbons and which have opposite configuration at only 2 or more chiral carbons, we say they are diastereomers. For example, if you can see on your screens the structures of D-glucose and D-L-trose. What we find in D-glucose and D-L-trose, that the configuration at the second chiral carbon and the third chiral carbon is opposite, but the configuration at the second and the third is opposite, but at the fourth chiral carbon and the fifth chiral carbon, the configuration is same. So if the configuration here is same, that means these enantiomers, these structures are not non-superimposable, and neither are they mirror images of each other. So such stereoisomers in which differ in configuration at only 2 or more stereo centers, we can say they are diastereomers. They may even differ at 1. If they are differing at 1, then we say it is a diastereomer. That means if they are differing at 1, that means that all other chiral carbons, the configuration is same. So for example, in D-glucose and D-L-trose, the configuration at the third chiral carbon and the fourth chiral carbon is same. So these are examples of diastereomers. So now, that means what is the difference between enantiomers and diastereomers? Enantiomers differ in configuration at each chiral carbon. So they are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. Whereas diastereomers differ in configuration at 1 or maybe more stereoisomers, but not at all stereo centers. So that means they are not mirror images of each other. Now the next class of molecules, that stereoisomers we are talking of, are epimers. What are epimers? Epimers are subunits of diastereomers that differ in configuration only at one stereocenter. So we can say epimers are subunit of diastereomers, because we know diastereomers are stereoisomers which are differing in configuration at 1, 2 or 3 or maybe more chiral carbons, but not at all. Whereas epimers are those diastereomers which differ in configuration only at 1 chiral carbon. Now let me explain this in detail. If we are looking into example of glyceraldehyde, which is the simplest aldehyde, which is optically active, which is a aldotriose, it has 1 chiral carbon. Now since it has 1 chiral carbon, it will exist only as a pair of enantiomers. That means stereoisomers which are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. Now supposing we convert this glyceraldehyde into a 4 carbon monosaccharide, that is aldotetrose. So what we are going to do in that case, we are going to do Kiliani synthesis. So if we talk of that synthesis, what we find that this CHO group here has a double bond between carbon and oxygen, and this is a polar group, that is carbon is having a partial positive charge on it and oxygen is having a partial negative charge on it. So that means this will undergo nucleophilic addition reactions, and when we carry out the reaction with KCN in presence of water, what we find, we have HCN in this case, that is a CN will make a bond with this carbon here and H will go and make a bond with O here. So what will we get? We will get we've introduced a nitrile group here, and in the process what you find that you've generated a new chiral center. So in this new chiral center, now another point that you have to keep in mind is that this structure is planar. And when this structure is planar, this has a positive charge, this has a negative charge on it. This CN can make a bond with this carbon of the carbonyl group from either phases of this group. So that means we will have two different configurations in which one is on the OH will be on the right hand side, and in the other the OH will be on the left hand side. So these are a pair of epimers. Now, but we want to convert this CN into a CHO group, because what we want here is an aldehyde. So what we'll do, we will carry out the reduction with palladium and BaSO4, that is hydrogen in presence of a catalyst, palladium which has been poisoned with BaSO4, so that the aldehyde group which we are getting here cannot be reduced further to an alcoholic group. So when we carry out this reduction, what we find, the CN group, the cyano group here is reduced to an aldehyde group, and we get two molecules or two stereoisomers. One of them is D-erythrose and the other is D-threose. So what do we find in D-erythrose? In D-erythrose, why do we call it as D form? Because the OH is on the right hand side at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon, and this is known as a erythrose molecule. Now this is a next monosaccharide which is a aldose, and it is an aldose, and since it is having 4 carbons in it, it is aldotetrose. So when we look into these two structures carefully, what we find in erythrose and threose, the configuration at the 3rd carbon is same, but configuration at this carbon is different. That means the configuration at both the chiral carbons is not different, it is different only at one chiral carbon, that is the 2nd chiral carbon. This carbon is chiral because it is attached to 4 different groups. One is a CHO group, second is OH, H, and then we have CHOH. Similarly, this carbon is also asymmetric in nature. So at this carbons only that the configuration is different, hence they are examples of epimers. Now what we find that, as I've said, that if you look into the example of erythrose, what we find, what is an example of erythrose? In erythrose, both the hydroxyl groups and both the hydrogens are situated on the same side of the Fischer projection, and in threose it is the epimer where the OH groups are on the opposite sides of the Fischer projection. So what we find in erythrose, this carbon is chiral and this carbon is chiral, and in this both the OH are on the same side of the Fischer projection, and both the hydrogens here are also on the same side of the Fischer projection. So this is the erythrose form. Whereas in the triose form, the two OH are on the opposite sides of the Fischer projection. So we can say a erythrose molecule or are such molecules in which supposing these two, the terminal groups should be different and the two groups are same. So we can visualize that this could be a Y group here, this could be an X group here, and this could be CAB here, and again CAB here. So if the two identical groups are on the same side, we say it is the erythrose form of epimer, and if they are on the opposite side, we say it is the triose form. And on basis of this, we have the erythro and the trio nomenclature for other molecules, which I have discussed in great details in my nomenclature on stereochemistry in one of my previous lectures. Now we want to convert this L-triose to the next isomer. So we will be carrying out the same reactions, that is, we'll carry out the reaction with NaCN and hydrolysis, and then we will carry out the reduction, and we will get two epimers, two diastereomers, which are again epimers because they are differing in configuration only at one chiral carbon, which is this carbon, the first chiral carbon, right? And what we get here is L-lioxose and L-xylose. Now the next series that we have of epimers we can prepare from arabinose, which is a L-dopentose. And when we carry out the same reactions, that is, first we carry out the reaction with HCN and hydrolysis, and then we carry out the reduction with hydrogen in presence of palladium and BaSO4 and carry out the hydrolysis, we get again two epimers, which are D-glucose and D-mannose. So what are D-glucose and D-mannose? They are differing in configuration only at chiral carbon, that is the second carbon here, or where the configuration is different. So what we see, why is the configuration changing here? You have to remember that when we are doing a step-up reaction, this configuration which is retained this molecule is same here. In the process, when we are converting this group, CHO group, into this group, then what we find, we are creating a new chiral center. And since the structure here is planar, the OH can attach, I am now carrying out the summary here, can attach from, the CN can attack from either sides of the planar carbonyl group, and we get two enantiomers here. That is ultimate, the overall reaction will be addition of a water molecule here, that is a OH will add here and H will add here, and we will get a, that is, we are adding, we are converting this into a OH group, and then this is being converted into a next group, that is the CHO group. So what I am trying to tell you here is that we are playing with the CHO group, carrying out the reaction with HCN, then with hydrogen and PDBSO4 followed by hydrolysis. When we are going up the series, and in the process we are generating a new chiral carbon where the configuration is opposite, whereas at all other chiral carbons which are present in glucose and mannose, the configuration is same. So they are examples of epimers. So we will stop here, and then we will, in the next lecture, again my series, I will again continue with epimers only, followed by anomers. Thank you.